It's in the Bible. That's what Paul said. I'm not making that up. It's like, huh? Not demons. Demas. He was the only one that stayed with Paul. Paul ultimately alienated everybody. They all left him, but one guy. How could you have been a woman in one of Paul's churches? You're like, really? Yeah, you say good morning. Shh. I do not allow women to speak in church. You think? Oh, it's very warm. All right, finally Jeff and Marty are here. We can get started. I just said on the World Wide Web, as soon as Jeff and Marty get here, we can get started. And I think Wellington's in the UK, and Avery's recovering, so we send healing to her. Are we on the World Wide Web? Yep, the World Wide Web. All right. Good morning, beautiful people. Happy Thanksgiving weekend. And those of you who are just logging on, we'll get officially started in just a moment. I think a lot of people thought we were in Eatonton this weekend. Here comes some more. But last weekend was awesome, and we'll talk about it in a little bit. But that I can't imagine that turning out any better than it did. It was just, it really was. So we're all in agreement on this beautiful first Sunday. Okay, it's it's December. Y'all, it is nearly the year 2020. Doesn't that sound, 2020 sounds like spaceships and the Jetsons. It's like, wow, we have lived to see the year 2020. I mean, that sounds so one step beyond. All right, let's hit this for the YouTubians, for the people of the planet.
Hello,
Utubia.
and welcome to Metron. Metron means measure and sphere of influence, and we want to help you find your Metron. Through motivation, enlightenment, transcendence, renewal, outreach, and networking. We're excited to have you here today and hope you enjoy the service.
Good morning, Metronites. Give yourselves a big hand for being here, and welcome the YouTube people. We're glad that you have made it here. Many people are still en route, I assume, but I'm glad that you guys made it. We're very happy this month to be able to catch him in between international tours. And I think he and Sophie are going out of the country for Christmas, but we're going to have him here pretty much all of the month, all except for one Sunday. So I'm always happy to have any of my kids, but Jonah, there's definitely something special about his gift, and I don't have to convince you of that. You already know it. You've already experienced it. So I know he will bring his unique energy to us this month. I have good things to share with you, and it's going to be, we're going to end up this year, we've saved the best for last, absolutely. It's like the wine at the marriage of Cana. So we're so happy that he's with us today. Without any further ado, would you please welcome the one, the only, Jonah Swilley.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Y'all want to sit with me? Hope everyone had a great holiday. I'll be having a blue Christmas without you. I'll be so blue thinking about you. Decorations of red on a green Christmas tree won't be the same, dear, with you not here with me. And when those blue snowflakes start falling, that's when those blue memories start calling. And when you, with those Christmas of white, I'll have a blue, 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 blue Christmas. Sing it. You'll be doing alright with your Christmas of white, and I'll have a blue, 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 blue Christmas. One more time. You'll be doing alright with your Christmas of white, and I'll have a blue, 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 blue Christmas. Thanks. I practiced that a lot, and then like you just have that one little like, oh, what was that lyric? Cool. Let's try another one. The moon is right, spirits up, we're here tonight, and that's enough. Simply having a wonderful Christmas time. The party's on, the feeling's here. It only comes this time of year. Simply having a wonderful Christmas time. Simply having a wonderful Christmas time. The choir of children sing this song. Ding dong, ding dong, ding dong, ding. The word is out the town. Raise your glass and don't look down. Simply having a wonderful Christmas time. Simply having a wonderful Christmas time. The choir of children sing their song. Ding dong, ding dong, ding dong, ding. They practice all year long. Ding dong, ding dong, ding dong, ding. The party's on, the feeling's here. It only comes this time of year. Simply having a wonderful Christmas time. Simply having a wonderful Christmas time. Simply having a wonderful Christmas time. Thanks. I'm gonna do one non-Christmas song. Not that I don't love the Christmas music, but two things. Every time I look up, sometimes when I sing here, I always see 11:11. It's always really weird. It's really weird. And then two, a really unfortunate thing happened to a business that I used to work at down the street, and a lot of people could have been hurt, which they weren't. And I'm glad that everyone's here today. And it was, yeah, just a lot worse things could have happened. So that's why I wanted to sing the song. blessed. I am 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 blessed to be a witness. Corcovado parted the sky, and through the darkness on us he shines. Crucified in stone, but still his blood is my own. Glory behold, oh my eyes have seen. I am blessed, 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 I am blessed to be a witness. So much sorrow and pain, but still I will not live in vain. Like the hills of my home, some have crumbled and now are gone. Gather round for today, won't come again, won't come again. I am blessed, 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 I am blessed to be a witness. Some have gone, flown away, can't be with us here today. Like a question never asked, is wisdom wasted on the past? Only by the grace of God go I, go I. I am blessed, 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 I am blessed. Oh, I'm blessed to be a witness. Sing with me. I am blessed, 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 I am blessed to be a witness. I am blessed, 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 I am blessed to be a witness. I am blessed, 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 I am blessed to be a witness.
Yes.
Thanks, y'all.
Jonas
Love you.
Swilley. I love it. I love that song. Good job, bud. Love them all. Oh, thank you. Thank you for being everybody today. Good job, bud. It was awesome. You may be seated. Again, I want to say happy Thanksgiving to everyone. I posted this. I understand that the original story of the Pilgrims with the Native Americans has been whitewashed and romanticized. I mean, I know all that stuff. I can't get in a time machine and go back and change things of the past that I would if I could. So instead of mourning genocide, I'd like to say, well, let's take what's positive of the holiday and let's enjoy that. And I feel like most people are able to do that. And if it challenges your comfort zone to celebrate it, then don't celebrate it, but don't tell other people that they can't. Their consciousness may not be your consciousness, and that's one of the great things about ideally, the freedom in this country is you have the right to believe or not believe or celebrate or not celebrate in the way that's right for you. So ours was good. We did with my folks Wednesday night. Jared's in Croatia, of all places, having dental surgery, which that went well. But we were texting on what would have been Thanksgiving Day there, I don't know, 8 or 10 hours earlier. And he said, nobody here in Croatia knows what Thanksgiving is. I'm really bummed about it. And, I said, well, when you get back, we'll go to Mary Mac's and we'll get some turkey and dressing. He said, oh, my God, that sounds so good. So we've got a date to do a retro. And then Christina's, her husband, he's a director of a series here in town, but he took a job. He's also a freelance director. So he took a job for 4 weeks in New Mexico. And his mother has not met Clementine yet. So Christina and the baby flew to L.A., and he flew to L.A., and they landed within an hour of each other. He has daughters. We have lots of girls because I have my 3 granddaughters. Dyson is remarried and has 2 stepdaughters, and Todd has 4 daughters. So it's like lots of girls. But anyway, the pictures were adorable. It was a picture he posted. He was looking at a menu holding Clementine. It looks just like she's reading the menu. Yeah, it looks just like she's reading the menu with it. She's so cute. Well, I know, and I think she does too, but that is his baby. So when I post pictures like, this baby looks exactly like you, I'm like, well, she may look like the other side of the family, but yeah, I know. I sent Christina some infant pictures of me. I said, I'm just saying, just look at this. She says, no, I can see it. You definitely. And we have definitely bonded. She is a cutie patootie. But anyway, that was and of course, Gina and Jonah and Sophie were with us at Mom's, and it was interesting because I had posted this, and I don't mind posting these kind of things all along because a lot of times people from Columbus want to come up and visit Dad, and you know, it doesn't. If you've ever had somebody dealing with dementia, it doesn't. They don't remember who they are, and it actually makes the situation worse because and people think they're going to keep saying, "Well, you remember me, you remember," and it just stresses them out. So yeah, and so that's why I try to keep it positive, but I also want to let people know this is a really real thing that we did. We're really 5 years into it. We didn't say a lot about it at first, but what is interesting is he doesn't know who any of us are, but he was very cordial. 2 or 3 times during the meal, he kept saying, "I'm so happy to have you people in the home." He's like very welcoming, and so we don't say, "Don't you know who we are?" Because it stresses him out. So now we're just like, "Well, we're glad to be here. Thanks for letting us be here." But what's amazing is I never know what I'm going to get when I ask for this, but I said, "Dad, why don't you bless the food?" And he prays for the food. Sounds exactly like him. If you didn't know, you would have no idea. It's an interesting thing. I was telling Karen before the service, I stayed with my mom's dad in the hospital one night, and he had a similar situation. And the next day, the neurologist came in, and he said, "Mr. Paulk, do you know what day of the week it is?" "No." "Do you know your wife's name?" "No." "Do you know who the president is?" "No." "Do you know if you have any children?" "No." I said, "Granddaddy, what does John 3:16 say? For God so loved the world." He could quote every scripture. And the neurologist was amazed because he would ask him, like, basic stuff. "Do you know what city we're in?" "No." "Granddaddy, can you name the books of the Bible?" Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers. And it's so amazing to me how the human brain will retain some things and then not others. And so we're having to learn, a new normal while still always believing that, always leaving open for a miracle. Every time I go over there, and she's probably streaming that Mom's got some new thing, she's giving him coconut oil. I'm like, go for it. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that's not going to work because, who knows. So anyway, we had that, and then you guys were with your mom and Bo and Shirley. Looks like you all had a good time. So I have children who have to deal with their moms, plural. So now I just say, this is when we're celebrating. If you can show up, that's great. If not, no stress. Because I hate, I was even getting stressed out trying to get out, because initially we were going to try to go out to Ken's place on Thursday, which we did with all of his family. But initially I was planning on taking Mom and Dad out Thursday night, and they had one last seating I could get reservations for, and I was like so stressed because I thought, how are we gonna? Because his family's in no hurry, as they shouldn't be. But when you get there, you need to block off the day because you're going to be there, and I can't be saying we gotta go because I got to get to Stone Mountain to pick them. It worked out so much better. Just pick up Mary Mac's food and do it a day ahead of time, and I actually like celebrating on more than one day. It kind of prolongs it a little more. It's not just this one big blowout. One thing that was interesting, I'm not really sure what to make of this, but lately, the things I think manifest so quickly that I'm really being careful about what I think about. But at Ken's place, two things happened that I thought, well, this is really interesting. What's happening here? First of all, I don't hate dogs, but I'm not the biggest dog lover in the world. I kind of had a dog trauma when I was a kid, and I never, there's a part of my inner child that's never recovered from it. So it is what it is. If you like dogs, namaste, but namaste over here with and I have also, please take a deep breath before I say this, I've had issues with pit bulls. I live in the building with them, I share elevators with them, but I've been pretty outspoken about this breed. Is the only, you never read about Rottweilers or Doberman Pinschers or whatever attacking children, but there's the facts are out there. But I learned early on that pit bull lovers they're as radical, as more so than any political tribalism. Because 2 or 3 years ago, I was walking out here, and one just jumped up on me and scratched me, and I just posted a picture of it, and the fights that broke out over pit bull, I thought, oh Lord, this is more. I could get less stuff posting something about Donald Trump or Barack Obama than pit bulls. So I just don't say anything about it. Like in our building, I'm pretty sure the guy that lives across the hall that had one, I think he's moved out. I'm not really sure what goes on in that unit. But sometimes when you get on the elevator and they're like, oh, he won't bother you, and I'm like, let's wait for the next elevator. It's fine. I don't know if I want to be. He's growling and his hackles are up. I don't know that I want to be enclosed with him for 7 floors, but that's me. But anyway, I don't know. So there's extra friends there at Ken's niece's husband's house, and they've got a nice house out there out in the country. So we got there. It was about an hour and a half before the food was ready. So I was just sitting on a bit. He had a fire pit out in the backyard. So I was just sitting there, obviously on my phone. I'm addicted to my phone or whatever. And all of a sudden, this white pit bull just comes up, and she's the sweetest dog I've ever seen. She just jumps up on the bench next to me, and I don't know if you got a picture of it, but she starts like kissing me. And usually I'm not into that kind of thing, but she was such a sweet dog that I thought, why is the universe making me rethink pit bulls? And then I met her owner, he was a character. He was like a character out of a country song, and he's sitting there telling me about how he said he took her because there was some people that had her chained up in a yard and wouldn't feed her, and she was undernourished or whatever. He said, I just took her. And I said, do they know you took her? He said, yeah, they sure do. I said, are they going to try to get it back? He said, I'd like to see them try. And I thought, wow. Do not mess with whatever his name was. Don't mess with him, because I could tell he's got a gun. If not on him, there's one in the truck. I promise you. But it was really, I thought, well, that's interesting that I'm having to rethink my prejudices. And then Ken's family does a thing. In our family, we just like, we don't really exchange gifts. I give money, and everybody's like, Merry Christmas. The kids, sometimes they give, and it's fine. It's never been a big thing for us. It's usually more like last year, Jonah found me a vintage Charlie Brown Christmas vinyl. Those are the kind of things that they know I like. Because what are you going to get me? I have everything. So, but my kids really know me, and they'll get something that's special to me or whatever, and those things I do value. And what did Sophie help you find that? No, that was just a good gift. It meant that you know who I am, which is what gifts should be. Sometimes somebody give you a gift, and you're like, have you ever met me? Like, this is like, always remember, if somebody if they give you something, they go, I got you this because you don't have anything like it. It's like, well, I don't have anything like it because I don't like stuff like this. Like, that should have been a clue. Give somebody something that's like, oh yeah, that's her. Her name was Lucy. And she wasn't aggressive. She just, first of all, she just jumped right up on the bench and just stared at me. And then she starts making out with me. And it was just really kind of interesting. I was like, I can't believe I'm this good with this dog. So then they do an exchange, like a gift exchange. Every Christmas, everybody draws a name, whatever, and it's fine. You have a limit on how much you spend or whatever. And I love all of his family. There's one person that might have been a little challenging for me. I'm just like, nice person, glad I don't have to get a gift. Well, that's whose name I chose. So I thought, wow, this is really interesting that I'm dealing with pit bulls, and this is who I got to buy Christmas for. So then his niece, who's in charge of it, I started to put this back in here because this is who I got, and I don't know I have no idea what to get for this person. And to which his niece said, well, interestingly enough, she chose your name too. And she said, that's never happened before. In all the years we've done this, nobody has ever. And I thought, all right, universe, I get it. I guess it's a Christmas miracle. No more bah humbug for me. So anyway, that's what we did. Now, last Sunday, thank you for all of you who came out. It was a perfect day. It was just perfect. I don't know if you realize it, but Robert, now there's a few things he contracted out, and we helped him do that. We invested in it some. I personally invested some a little. But he did that himself. Like all of those beams, he hauled every one of those up on scaffolding. And I mean, for the most part, he built it. And I'm telling you, the pictures don't do it justice. I had seen the pictures, and I thought, oh, well, it's cute. But when I walked in, I was, oh my God, this is like really beautiful. And the way the weathered pews are, it gives it a shabby chic look that's just really very appealing. It's like that's fine, but it doesn't really, it's really got a beautiful energy in it. It's got a fireplace, and we just had such a great time and had more than enough food, and we're going to, I feel like I've stressed him out now because I've announced we're going to do a meditation weekend there, and so he's calling me like, all right, I got to figure out how do I do these 7 stations. You got to meet with me. I said, well, don't stress over it. I said, you've been working hard. You need to just chill out for a few weeks. We'll figure that out later. It doesn't have to. But anyway, I was very happy with the way that turned out, and thank you so much for coming out. And it's there's nobody like him. I mean, that was what we did with the anointing oil, and he's just had his 20th grandchild who was there. Now he's adopted these 3 kids, and the thing with little Adam is just, well, all 3 of them are miracles, but Adam was not supposed to make it through the night, and now he's 2 years old and healthy baby, and it's Robert definitely has a gift that I don't have. I adore my children, yours not so much. But you know what I mean. It's like I like your kids, but you know what I mean. I'm not one of the all kids are magical people. I'm like, I've met some that not so much. But he, even before he had his own children, he used to go to hospitals and sit with families while they were waiting for the baby to come, and he'd sit there and cry with them. And I said, you definitely are called, and the kids are just exceptional. His 2 little girls sang with him, and they're both the product of horrible situations where, if they. And amazingly, Putnam County is surprisingly progressive. I mean, for them to let a same-sex couple, this is their 3rd adoption, and he has great his little girls go to the same school with Ken's granddaughters, and the teachers love them, and they're, it's just interesting where you think a place wouldn't be as progressive, and you're like, wow, I'm surprised. Like, that's kind of amazing. I loved that it worked out the way that it did, and I know he worked really hard to get it done. But sometimes you need a deadline, you need a reason to make it happen. Which he said, I really needed the push to make that happen. And I told him, I said, when you say you start meeting in it, I said, do you mean weekly or monthly? He said, I don't know yet. I said, I'm just telling you, you should probably do it weekly. I said, it's a lot, but if you don't meet weekly, people kind of lose track of the sense of community, and which he agreed. And then one of Ken's friends was asking where it was, if they had, on Facebook, asked if they had regular services, and Ken says, yeah, they're starting in January. So I told him, I said, well, Ken's already outed you on Facebook. Y'all are going to have to start. He's already announced it, so y'all got to start in January. So this girl just had brain surgery the week before. And, I mean, it's extraordinary, the kind of people that, yeah, her second brain surgery. And I thought it was cool the way they had the little thing set up for the food, and it was just really, I don't know, it was a beautiful experience, and it will not be the last time that we're there. And it was, yeah, that's his new grandbaby. I asked him, I said, can you keep up with all of your grandchildren's names? Because even with my 3 boys, all with J names, I don't think I ever call y'all the right one first. It's why did we do the J names? But anyway, I loved that. And yeah, it's like he's a nation. Yeah, definitely. And some of his kids, Robert didn't have quite the experience with his children when he came out that I did with mine. And so for some of them, it's been slow coming. But many of them were there the other day. I hate to say it, but I can't keep up with who's who. You know what I mean? It's like in all the years I've known him, as kids, it's just like a big group of people that I see. Like, I don't know. I'm sorry, I don't know your names individually. I know there, but I don't know which one's which. So, but they were there with their kids, and it was it's a beautiful, beautiful piece of property, and I loved it. So I was very happy that turned out. Remember that we have our Christmas event coming up on December 17th. That's on a Tuesday night. We're going to be at Rhodes Hall, the Castle in Peachtree, and the group Like the Dickens are going to be singing, and they'll be in period costume. It's going to make it really feel. It's really going to feel like Christmas. And Zest Catering's going to be doing it again, and the tickets are available now. We've already sent you the shout-out for that, so you can click on that. Avery puts a lot of effort into the shout-out, so be sure that you read them, because pretty much everything that people ever text me and ask me, I could just say, read the shout-out, read the shout-out. I mean, I could put that on automatic response, and it would probably answer everybody's question. Like, read the shout-out. What's the shout-out? It's that email we've been sending you for 5 years. You just have to click on it and open it. All the information is there. Yeah, but where do I buy? On the shout-out. But where do I? It's on the link. You hit open. All of your questions shall be answered. And also remember that in January we have our meditation weekend number 9 coming up in Blue Ridge, Georgia. That's going to be January 25th and 26th. I think most of you have already gotten rooms. It was this one. This one was so fast. I think were you bringing 6 with you? All of it. Brenda's really kind of turned these meditation weekends into a real experience with her granddaughters, which I think is awesome to build. It's a great way to build a memory, and they really get it. They're into meditation and they understand it, and so this one I was like, I'm amazed how quick y'all got your. Especially for something like this, the beach is an easy sell. When everybody wants to go to the beach. But when you're going to the mountains in January and people are still wanting to go, like, wow, that's going to be good. So, and we will be, because it's January, we'll be meeting indoors somewhere. It's probably good, especially for a sunrise. We did a sunrise in October, but I don't know that we could do a sunrise in January. Well, we went outside last January, and held hands a little bit. Yeah. Unicoi. Yeah, now Cherokee was in October. Yeah, in Cherokee we did a walking meditation. Woohoo! So that was good. All right, our outreach for December is the Empty Stocking Fund. That's a very well vetted charity, and we're doing it through their local Atlanta chapter, and they do a lot of really good hands-on stuff. So that's where it's technically a tithe of what comes in that goes to these charitable organizations. And now sometimes I'll take a picture when I meet with Avery on Thursdays. The mailbox is over here. We've given to so many places in half a decade that I'm on so many lists. It's like I'll take a picture of it, of all the envelopes, because it shows we have sown into all of these organizations. And it's just, I don't know, it's a good reminder that we've put a lot of good karma out there, a lot of good stuff. And so Metron has definitely made a difference, and so that's good. Thanks for having that picture, Michelle. Let's see. Oh, and I don't know if we got Year of Living Your Best Life. That was some of our stuff. It's mostly my vegetable place. People ask me, "Are you a vegetarian?" No, I'm more of a flexitarian. Flexitarian means you're primarily vegetarian, but if you want meat, you'll eat it. Like, I don't really eat mammals, but I'll have a bird or a fish now and then. But I always thank the animal, like, dear animal, this is a part of the food chain. Sorry I got to eat you, but thank you for your contribution. You're gonna become part of my DNA now. And so, if you think that's too mystical, fine. But anyway, thank you for knowing how to use the hashtag for those. Okay? We caught up on everything. Again, we're going to send healing energy to Avery, who's overcoming in her physical body, and for any other situations. I know Freddie and Roz had her 60th birthday celebration last night, and she texted me they still have a house full of people. So that was cool. They looked really good, and so. Yeah, that was BJ and Jay. It was a 70s theme party. And you don't see the full outfit, but BJ had bell bottoms on. And there's Eddie and Patrick and Rhonda. Rhonda's birthday is actually the same day. So that was cool. Yeah, when BJ walked in, I was like, I'm just talking about Shaft. That's what. Shut your mouth. Anyway, so let's see. I believe that is everything. Are you ready for the word? It's going to change your life. You're about to hear a life-changing word, possibly the greatest message you've ever heard in your entire life. That's what I'm putting out there. All right, we ready? Welcome to the Metron Live podcast, coming to you live from beautiful historic Midtown Atlanta in the month of December, the year of our Lord 2019. It's about to be the year 2020. Metron people, give the podcast people a big welcome. Thank you for listening. My series this month, I posted this on Facebook this morning. I said I'm starting a new series, but I'm also revisiting some previous themes with added revelation. And interestingly, I looked in my Facebook memories from 6 years ago, as I was talking about some of these things then, but I have new light on them. Particularly, well, let me give you the title first, and then I'll explain it. It's a Wonderful Life, Freeing Yourself from the Ghost of Christmas Past to Follow Your Star in the Future. Of course, there's three, it's alluding to three things there. The Frank Capra classic, It's a Wonderful Life. The Ghost of Christmas Past, of course, is a reference or a nod toward A Christmas Carol, Charles Dickens. And then, of course, The Star in the East is the nativity story. Some people say Jesus is the reason for the season. No, he's not the only reason for the season. Christmas was celebrated on December 25th. It was called something else, but there's a winter solstice that was celebrated by the pagans and other religions for millennia before Jesus was born in Bethlehem. The birth of Jesus actually happened around April. But the Catholic Church Christianized all the pagan holidays. So the vernal equinox and the winter solstice, all those things became either Easter or Christmas or whatever. So Jesus is one of the reasons for the season. And I think all of the characters, of course, our favorite one, of course, is the birth of the Christ child. But there's some amazing characters that we revisit every Christmas, like the Grinch, like Ebenezer Scrooge, like Charlie Brown, many of the characters that are in the Christmas carols. And I've talked about this for years, but I think it's important that we recognize that Christmas is a time, whether you consider yourself Christian or not, Christmas is a time where people believe for the impossible. That the fact that we, as from a Christian paradigm, celebrate it with an angel saying to a virgin, you're going to conceive because the Holy Spirit's going to plant the seed in you. It will not be a human seed. Even though now we realize sperm isn't actually seed. It's now we know biologically it's actually fertilizer for seed, but who knew? In ancient times, they didn't understand about chromosomes and that sort of thing, but that's another teaching. But I'm going to spend these installments this Sunday and the next 2 Sundays. The last Sunday, the last Sunday of the month, I'd like to, Ed, if you're here, I'd love for you to do Beautiful Star of Bethlehem. It's like, to me, that's a Christmas tradition. I can't have Christmas without that. And I'd even like to open it up if there's other people that want to do some Christmas music. That would be a great time to do that. So let me know if you're interested. If you can sing. Now, if you can't sing, don't be expecting a Christmas miracle. Now, I can't carry a tune, but I just believe when I get up and open my mouth that day, the Lord's going to bless me. No, He's not. We're going to let us save you the embarrassment. If you've lived your whole life and you can't carry a tune, we love you, but you still can't carry a tune. So let's just embrace our limitations and stay in our lane. Yes. So, but I do. We've been listening. Ken could listen to Christmas music 365 days a year, and he started. Yeah. Speaking of someone who can actually sing, I don't want to say that there were people who pulled up in the parking lot last week who didn't know. I'm not mentioning anybody in this room, but in fairness to her, she has been on tour and so it's easy to miss an announcement or two. But I'm glad you made it today. She can't say a lot about it, but I know some things have been posted about already. There's some really cool things on the horizon for Chandra and through Tyler Perry and so. And so, I mean, it's a big deal. It's a big deal, and she and I have had several conversations. Because it's kind of been a journey for her about learning, what to expect and what to release and when to be, not to read too much into something. It's been we've had some really good conversations about things that, we're all learning about. What does it mean to make it or get a connection or finding a breakthrough and realizing that you've already made it and there's not a thing that you're waiting for to happen or whatever. So 2020 is going to be a big year for her, and we're all excited. But back to what I'm talking about, we've been listening to Christmas music for a couple of weeks now. I mean, today's just December 1st, and I've already heard the repertoire over. I've heard enough that now I'm like, good Lord, how many people covered that song? And there's some of the covers I'm like, no, you should have left. It wasn't broke. Don't try to fix it. It was fine with the original. And I'm pretty much of a purist. I want to hear Bing Crosby sing White Christmas and Nat King Cole sing the Christmas song. And there's certain that's my version of choice. But then once in a while, somebody will come up with a new cover, and I'm like, okay, that was good. And the good thing about when someone interprets a song, this is certainly true. I've told Marshall Ruffin this. Marshall definitely interprets a song. Like when he'll do a cover of somebody else's song, it makes you think about it in a way that you haven't thought about it before. Like, oh, wow, that made me rediscover that song. Dolly Parton wrote I Will Always Love You to Porter Wagner back in the late 60s. And it had a country music following for years. Well, then when Whitney Houston covered it for The Bodyguard, it kind of rewrote the song. And most people now, when they think about I Will Always Love You, they're thinking about Whitney's version. And believe me, Dolly loves Whitney's version. Dolly made lots of money from Whitney's version. So Dolly ain't mad at Whitney. I mean, MC Hammer used, who did Give It To Me, Baby? Who did Rick James? He used Can't Touch This was actually the na 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 na. What's she's a very freaky girl. What was? Yeah, Super Freak. Of course you knew that. Yeah. My playlist, I'm listening to like Barbara Streisand and stuff. Ken will play Top 40 radio. He knows every new song. I'm like, how do you know these songs? He knows the rap part, everything. Like, what? Who are you? But yeah, like Rick James, who is now gone on, but he made $50 million from MC Hammer using his beat. No, 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 no. So anyway, sometimes a cover of a song will make you rediscover it. But there's three that I want to talk about, and I've talked about them before, but there's some things I've never shared along these lines. Today I want to talk about the Little Drummer Boy. Next week I want to talk about Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, and then I want to talk about Ebenezer Scrooge. But today I want to revisit this song because the more I have listened to it, and I've heard several people's version of it just this week, but every time I listen to it, I hear something else. I don't even know if the writer intended for all of this stuff in the song, but these are the things that I hear. It's interesting because I've been listening to this podcast about Dolly Parton as a writer, and there's this union movement that uses the song 9 to 5 as their anthem, and the woman was breaking it down. The lyrics-wise, she says, let me show you how the progression of the song about community, it was just very interesting how you can hear something in a song. To me, the scripture says the spiritual man judges all things. So every movie I watch there's something that it says to me. There's a theme that I pick. I can't watch The Wizard of Oz without getting 10 more sermons out of it because it's such a multi-layered parable about not realizing who you already are, and there's the trials of life that make you realize you already do have the brain, you do have the heart, you do have the courage, you don't think you have it, but there's so much you could say about it. But let me give you a little background about the song, The Little Drummer Boy. And this is what it says in Wikipedia. It says, The Little Drummer Boy, originally known as The Carol of the Drum, is a popular Christmas song written by the American classical music composer and teacher Katherine Kennicott Davis in 1941. First recorded in 1951 by the Trapp Family Singers. Now that's the Sound of Music was based on the Trapp Family. So they're the ones that popularized it. The song was further popularized by 1958 recording by the Harry Simeone Chorale, which that's the one that most people hear. That's personally my favorite. It's where this little kid's voice is singing, and it's just very methodical. The whole point is that there's a drum beat that brings a continuity to the entire piece. The pa-rum-pa-pum-pum becomes there's nearly a hypnotic sensibility to it, where you hear, prum, bum, 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 bum. So and there's not a big range either. So the melody keeps you where you have to really focus on not the vocal arcs and that sort of thing, but just on the steady. It's a march, really, is what it is. There's a sort of a subtle marching listen to this song. There's something that you need to hear in this. This Simeone version was re-released successfully for several years, and the song has been recorded many times since. In the lyrics, the singer relates how, as a poor young boy, he was summoned by the Magi to the Nativity of Jesus. Without a gift for the infant, the little drummer boy played his drum with approval from Jesus' mother, Mary, recalling, I played my best for him, and he smiled at me. Now, I've talked about the little drummer boy before, but I want you to try to hear this with new ears, because I want to talk about some aspects of it that I didn't cover before. The first thing that really stands out to me in this song is the word they, when it says, come, they told me. Now, who is they? The Magi, of course, are these Persia, of course, ancient Persia was where Iraq is now. They were diviners, they were kings, they practiced magical arts. That's where we get the word magi, magic, from. They were not just astronomers, they were astrologers. They didn't know anything about the messianic prophecies about a Messiah. They had never heard of that. These men are Persian. This was even centuries before the Quran was written. So these men, they have no holy writ. They know, their theology totally comes from the zodiac. The religion Zoroastrianism came from this part of the world too. That's where you get the yin and the yang. You see the black and white thing. That was their mentality. If you remember, in Matthew's the only of the gospel writers. Well, actually, there were 300 gospels that were written, but the Council of Nicaea only allowed for 4. That's why when people say the Bible is the Word of God, I'm like, you need to go look that up again, because you just clearly don't know about the history of the Bible. There's a lot that's been written. But I do believe the Bible that we have is inspired, and I love it. But in Matthew's gospel, it's the only time the Magi is mentioned, and it's where they say, where is he who was born the King of the Jews? They go to Herod's palace. For we have seen his star in the east and have come to worship him. So clearly in ancient lore, there was an idea that a super king was going to be born at a certain time, and these men charted the zodiac. Now, I don't know how long it would have taken them to travel on the back of an animal from Iraq to Palestine, but I would imagine it's the kind of thing that you have to plan for way in advance. And when they get to Herod's palace, remember, Herod didn't know what they were talking about. They said, where is he's the King of the Jews? And he's like, hello, I'm the King of the Jews. What are you talking about? And he's threatened by this idea because, well, clearly these men are potentates from another nation, and they must know something that's so important that they've, well, the song says, bearing gifts we've traversed afar, field and fountain, moor and mountain, following yonder star. And so he calls for an expert in ancient texts, and that's when remember he says that a man who knew the scriptures, he found the prophecy from Micah, who said that the virgin would conceive and give birth in Bethlehem. So on that word, the Magi leave Jerusalem and they go to Bethlehem. Now Israel, for that it would be like going from North Georgia to South Georgia. I mean, Israel's not that big. But you know the rest of the story, and there's some scholars even believe that the Old Testament Joseph and the New Testament Joseph were the same story, and they got conflated because there's such similarities in them. They both have to do with Egypt. Babies were killed, in the Moses story, all the babies were killed, and the Jesus story, so my intention here is not to get off in the weeds about that. For our purposes today, let's stay with the biblical narrative as we know it from the Judeo-Christian text. But suffice it to say, these guys were a big deal, the Magi. They were important enough they get an audience with Herod. So these aren't just some indigent people who showed up. These are people who, I don't know how it would have worked in the ancient world, but did they send letters? How did they get an audience with the king? Now, what's that got to do with the little drummer boy? Well, she's not here today, but I was talking to Dr. Sheila a few weeks ago, and she said, explain to me how this could happen. She said, I just talked to somebody that sat under your ministry for years and still is connected in some ways, who said to me, I don't disagree with anything Bishop teaches. I've just never thought it applies to me. I've always thought it applied to the important people. And she said, how could somebody sit under your teaching for that long? Because that's what you're known for, is making everybody feel like they're invited to the table. And I said, well, this is why you have to get into, you can't just throw theology at people. You've got to understand what's the labyrinth that the word has to go through to get to them. Because if you don't assume you're being seen, if you don't assume that you're being looked at, if you don't assume that you're important, then people can talk about things, but you think, well, this doesn't apply to me. This is to the people that count. So this story is as much about class consciousness, class warfare, and especially, I know we still have to deal with things today, but in the ancient world, they believed that if you were born to nobility, you were born to nobility. If you weren't, you're just too bad, so sad. You know, the idea of liberty and justice for all is a relatively new idea. It's the reason why people from Europe who came here and founded this concept that we now have called America, it's why it took them a while to have a moral conflict about slavery, because they just didn't think of people that were not from Europe in the same category. They just didn't. You know, white privilege isn't a new thing. I mean, it's a lot of what we have now in America was based on that concept. So when they said all men are created equal, what they meant was all men from Europe. And they specifically meant men. I mean, women were less in their consciousness than people of color were. I mean, it's like, you know, at least with African Americans, they got the vote before women did. You know, women. But so the premise of this song is set up that this is this. I mean, it's a fictional character, but he's just all he's got is this little drum. And so the picture is the song that these are the Magi. I'm visualizing they probably got an entourage they travel with. I mean, you know, usually in the nativity scene you see three men on a camel, but I'm sure for this kind of journey there had to have been an entourage, and you know, so you're probably talking, you know, who knows how many people were in that company of people. So for him to say, "Come, they told me," and it says, "A newborn king to see, pa-rum-pa-pum-pum, our finest gifts we bring." Let me show you the lyrics, and then I'll talk about it. It's no, there's number 2. Yeah. "Come, they told me, pa-rum-pa-pum-pum, a newborn king to see, pa-rum-pa-pum-pum. Our finest gifts we bring to lay before the king." Go on. "So to honor him when we come." Now hold it right there. Now that sounds like a very benign statement. Come with us. We're rich. We're connected. We're powerful. We're famous. We had an audience with the king. And we have our finest gifts to bring. And you know, a lot of times in modern context, we understand gold, frankincense, and myrrh. The gift of gold was like setting up a trust fund for Jesus. It's like, you know, these were major monetary gifts. So to say to this little, let's imagine this kid is real, this little indigent little drummer boy, all he's got is his drum, to say, "Come with us because we're taking our finest gifts," that can sound kind of exclusive. That can sound like, well, there's no room for me in that scenario. You know, when you really look back at the Gospels, I've told you this for years, whatever your political persuasion, you can enforce it through the Gospels. There's a conservative ideology you can espouse capitalism. You can espouse socialism, communism. I mean, there's whatever your ideology of choice, you can find, even in the Gospels, something to support your ideology. I always say this when I talk about this, but at Coretta Scott King's funeral, I was listening to, there were Republican and Democrat senators and ex-presidents that all spoke, and they all used the scripture, and they were all propping up their platform with the scriptures. And I thought, wow, the scriptures are really elastic. Do you know what I mean? They're not. They're very fluid because everybody's using it to buttress their viewpoint. But in the Gospels, and I in the past I was accused of being a prosperity preacher. I certainly never considered myself that. But from the Gospels, it's a little bit of a hard sell to really preach a prosperity gospel. Now you can, from Proverbs and even from some of Paul's epistles, you got a lot of stuff for prosperity. But when you really look back at the Gospels, Jesus was really talking to disenfranchised poor people most of the time. Poor people who thought rich people had something that was unavailable to them. Remember when Jesus said, remember when he says to the rich young ruler, sell everything you have and give it, and the rich ruler couldn't do it? And Jesus said, he didn't say it was impossible, but he said, it's easier for a camel to get through the eye of the needle. And he wasn't talking about a sewing needle. It was there was a little smaller gate in the city where a camel could get through it, but he'd have to get on his knees to go through it. It was very difficult. It was difficult enough that most people with camels wouldn't even attempt it. But it could be done, in theory. But what's interesting about when Jesus said it's easier for the camel to go through the eye of a needle than a rich man to be saved, the disciples were shocked that he said that. Because they said, well, then who could be saved? So clearly in their consciousness, they thought the rich people were the good people. The rich people were connected. The rich people obviously did something right. Because obviously they got everything. They're going to be saved too, right? Like they couldn't believe Jesus said something negative about affluent people. Two stories that stand out in the Gospels that make me think of this. One of them is the story of the woman with the issue of blood. Because if you read it in context, if you remember the story is that Jairus, the leader of the temple, comes to him and says, my daughter is sick, and will you come and heal her? And so Jesus said, yeah, I'll come and heal her. And it's en route to Jairus' house that the woman with the issue of blood touches the hem of his garment, and Jesus says, who touched me? And when I used to tell this story, I made it a point to always say, here's this, it's a big deal that this guy Jairus is coming to Jesus, because this could be a good career move for him. This guy's very connected with religion. And now you got this she is ruining everything. This woman that we don't even know a name for her. We know the name Jairus, but she's just the woman with the issue of blood who's got a nasty disease that Leviticus talked badly about. And here she's had it for 12 years. Like, she's just go away. Even the fact that this says that she had to go through the press to get to Jesus meant that there were people who didn't want her there in this scene. I remember, I don't know if you've ever watched some of the things at the King Center or whatever, but he's an Atlanta icon. He's a man, they call him the happy preacher, and he's at all these events, and he decks out, and he's got a little tambourine, and he draws a lot of attention to himself. He makes funny comments, and if you're trying to lead a serious thing, he can be distracting. I love him because I've sat through some of these 5 and 6 hour events that he actually made them much easier because he's just so entertaining. But I also remember going into Mrs. King's funeral, he was in front of Judah and me, and they turned him away. They wouldn't let him in. I could tell they didn't want him, and I mean the higher ups of the church would not let him in. And it was really kind of awkward for me because I thought, well, I feel bad you're not letting him in. And they knew him really well, and they didn't want him. This was a very austere occasion. They just didn't want him in there. And I thought, wow, I hope a lot of people didn't see that, because this is really, I mean, if it was such a big deal, I would probably say, if you don't let him in, don't let me in. But, it just caught me off guard, and next thing I knew, I was like, well, okay, that was awkward. But I understood what it is that when you've got an event going on and there's one person's there, going to mess it up. Am I being too real? So I think about this because when Jesus healed the woman with the issue of blood, he called her daughter publicly, which in that context was him saying, you're just as important as Jairus is. I'm going to take the time to minister to you. As a matter of fact, the story ends up being more about her, really. And at the end of it, they come to, after the whole thing happens with her, they come to Jesus and say, don't bother the master anymore. Your little girl is dead. And Jesus says, just be not afraid, only believe. And then he goes and raises her from the dead. But the point is, that story is about a rich, connected, powerful man. And within that story is a story of a woman who is invisible, I always say this to you, but even in the Gospels, hardly any of the women have names ascribed to them. We know all the names of the apostles, but it's the woman with the issue of blood. It's the woman at the well. It's the woman who was Jesus. Women aren't even personalized, other than like Mary Magdalene and a couple of the main players. Women are just, they're just not thought of as equals with men. They're just not. And so when Jesus would say to a woman publicly, call her daughter, that was a real stamp of approval on her. And another one that I think of is that, there was two Lazaruses in the, it's plural Lazari, two Lazaruses, and one is the Lazarus that Jesus raised from the dead. The other one is the story in the Gospel of Luke, which the people who are proponents of a literal hell, they use this story a lot. It's the story of Lazarus and the rich man. And it's, the way houses were in this part of the world, they were nearly like, they were more like estates. Like you would have a house that would be walled in, and there'd be other houses in the, it's kind of like what a plantation was like. It was like there'd be a wall around it, and there were servants' quarters, there were all these. So when you talked about, closing the door for the night, you weren't talking about like a house or an apartment. You're talking about a gate that surrounded a complex. Okay? And there's a story, I think it's Luke 16, where there's a man named Lazarus, and I won't tell you all that it says about him. He's in bad shape. He's sick, he's poor, he's a beggar. He's on this rich man's front step, and the rich man won't acknowledge him. He won't feed him, he won't do anything, he won't help him out. I think about this a lot because, where I live, there's homeless people that live under the overpass by my building, and I can see, I live in downtown. I see tents set up everywhere, and, I've done what I can over the years. I was doing homeless ministry before Safe House even started. Union Mission used to be across the street from where Safe House is, now on Ellis Street. I used to go there and minister. I've ministered to the homeless for years and years and years, even when I didn't live downtown. And still, when you live here a lot, you kind of learn, who to give to and who not to give to. One guy one night came up to me with a story, wanted me to buy him dinner. I said, I already bought you dinner. He said, no, you didn't. I said, yeah, I did. You gave me the same story about 2 weeks ago on Peachtree. And he said, I did? I said, yeah, you got to get a new story. Because I said, I'll feed you again, but I'm having deja vu. So, and you get a little street smart when you live down here. Like, Joan, I don't know if you remember, when you and Ken and I, for some reason, the three of us were going to see a movie. We were at Atlantic Station. Remember that girl comes up and she's telling us this story. She's crying about how she's being abused and she's kicked out of her house. And we're like upset, and I'm giving her $20 bills, everything. We go sit down in Starbucks, and 2 minutes later, she's walking by on a cell phone, smoking a cigarette, laughing and talking. I thought, this girl is better than Meryl Streep. Because she had us all. We're like, she had the story. And so it's easy for me to walk by certain people like, I can't do it today, bud, okay? And then sometimes I do. Sometimes I don't. There's a lot of issues that go on, like the guy around the corner from here that I think he was the 23rd person that had approached me that day. And he started coming. I said, buddy, I don't have any money on me today. And he said, I can't believe how racist you are. That is racial profiling. What made you think I was going to ask for money? I said, all right, fair enough. I shouldn't have judged you. What do you want? He said, well, I do want money. I was like, well, I was trying to save us both some time because I was pretty sure that's what you were going for. But I'll try to be more sensitive next time. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, especially when you wear a collar downtown, it's like you're a homeless magnet. It's like, I'll take this thing off right now. And then there was the other story about the guy. He had asked for money, and I said, I don't have any money on me. And then as I walked out, I thought, you know what? That's a lie. I do. I didn't realize I had forgotten. I do. I have got a $20 bill. I thought, I'm going to go give him this $20. So I turned around, and just as I got to him, he said, all white people are sorry. And I said, you know what? That's going to cost you $20. You were real close to 20, but I'm going to put my sorry $20 back in my sorry pocket. But the story of Lazarus, it's an interesting story. This is the one where they both die, and Lazarus goes to what they call the bosom of Abraham, which was it's a fable. But the rich man goes into Hades, and it's the one time where Jesus does talk about fire. Remember where he says, would you just tell Lazarus to come dip his finger in the water and quench my tongue and go warn my brothers, whatever. And what's interesting about the story, when people want to really use it to prove literal hell, they miss the point of the story, because the story is basically a communist manifesto. Because what he says, well, in that life, you had everything, and he didn't have anything. So now the tables have been turned, and now he has everything, and you have nothing. So if you follow the theology of that, it would be that all rich people go to hell and all poor people go to heaven, which I don't think that's what Jesus was saying. People miss the point. All he was saying is, for God's sake, if you've got, how hard would it be to walk out and give the guy something on your, who's on your doorstep, give him something to eat, which is why I mentioned that about the homeless people around my building, because sometimes it can be overwhelming. On cold nights, when I drive by and I see them sleeping on the sidewalk, I'm like, good God, how are they going to make it through the night? But I can't go fix all of that. However, if somebody was on my front step, yes, of course. I mean, you got to be some serious, heartless when somebody's at your front door. One of the funniest things your oldest brother ever said to me is when he lived, one of those places he lived. He didn't have a car, and he was walking. I mean, he was walking through a very dangerous part of town. And if I ever even stop to get gas around there, people come up to the car while I'm pumping gas to ask for money. So I asked him, I said, Jared, do people not, panhandlers not bother you, walking through this neighborhood? And he said, everybody here knows I don't have anything. They're not going to. I said, oh, well, that's the upside to your lifestyle. I guess when you look at me, it looks like I got something that you may want. One time I was pumping gas over here in Little Five Points, and a guy comes up, and I think I gave him $1, and the proprietor comes out with a tire iron and says, I told you to leave my customers alone, and starts chasing him around my car. I'm like, no, it's fine. Don't hit him. It's fine. I wanted to give him the money, please. I said, dude, you better get out of here. They're going to crack your skull open. Anyway, but the story of the rich man and Lazarus was basically him saying, he's talking about class distinction. He's basically saying everybody is worthy. There shouldn't be the good guys and the bad guys. And, it's not just Christianity, but even like Hindu societies were based on a caste system. And, So it's prevalent through a lot of religions about these are the good people and here's the lowlifes, and there's some people that still, they don't even realize they think that way, and they still think that way. So when he says, "Come, they told me our finest gifts to bring," the fact that he still goes to the manger scene means, wow, either this kid doesn't realize this is beyond, he's out of his league here. You got nothing to bring. Like I remember, this isn't who maybe you think I'm talking about, but I went through a little period in my life where I was friends with a lot of pro ball players. And these are people that have $25 million a year contracts. And this one couple that I kind of knew, they got pregnant, and we got an invitation to the baby shower. And they had a list of the places where they were registered. And there was, everything was Tiffany's. There's nothing you could have bought at any of these stores that would be less than $1,000. And I'm looking at this thinking, wow, first of all, you got a lot of nerve inviting people to this baby shower saying these are the stores we have to. This is like, I just looked at it, I thought, I'm not rich enough to be friends with you. Like, if this is where you're registered, there's a part of me that would say, why are y'all even having a baby shower at all? Couldn't you, you're making $50 million a year. Why can't you just sit down and say, here's everything we need. We just bought it. Thanks. So when I hear this, our finest gifts we bring come with us, there's a lot of potential to be intimidated by that. If you don't have the right gift, like, oh, I'm out of my league. You guys are amazing. You're rich enough to travel. You're important enough to have an audience with a king. You're enlightened enough to be able to read the zodiac and know when this child's going to be born. You're too rich for me. You're too smart for me. You're too connected for me. I don't even know I'm having a conversation with you. You know what I've learned over the years of this? I've had this conversation enough times I finally realized it was the truth. People in the past that I would be intimidated by, if we ever had a chance to talk and get really honest, they would always say the same thing back to me. They'd be like, I'm just so intimidated when I'm in your presence. And I'm like, blah, blah, blah. What? No, that's my line for you. How can you be intimidated for me? It's sometimes you don't realize how people are perceiving you. Like I even remember one time a few years ago, Robert's in the screen. Robert knows a lot of people that I don't know, and he'll get invited to these little conferences, whatever. And one day I asked him, I said, how come none of those guys ever invite me to these things? Like, how do you get the invitation? He said, they would never consider inviting somebody like you to their little conference. I said, why? They said, because they think of you as, you're too big and important to come to my little conference. I said, why? Why would they think? Like, I don't think of myself that way. I've never thought, oh, I'm too good to go to that. I just never thought that. But clearly there are people that think you think that. Perception's an amazing thing. I remember even one time years ago, we're long past this, but I remember when the church was really big and I was on TV and, just very connected and just kind of living a very sort of different life even than I live now. And I was having Howie, my friend that I talk about so much, this was years ago, we were talking about something. I was asking his opinion, and he actually said to me, he said, I can't believe you even care what I think anymore. I said, what are you talking about? And he said, well, where you are in life, why would my opinion even matter? I said, that is the most ridiculous thing you have ever said. Like, you're like my best friend. You're like one of the most important people to me. He said, I know, but the way people see you, like I remember even when I left the Assemblies of God years ago, I was driving by one day and I saw when our first building was there in Conyers, and a guy I went to college with whose church is still there. All these years, this is like 30 years later, they're still there. I went to college with him and his wife, and I was like, I can't believe the Assemblies of God they assigned a guy there. I mean, like, it just bothered me. Yeah, why did they tell me he was going into my old building? And, you know, my dad was on the council. Like, I'm sure Dad must have approved that. So every time I'd pass him in a restaurant or something, I would speak, but I was definitely cold. So one day he came to my office. We were over there on Klondike Road, and that building's not even there now. And he made an appointment. He came in with bread. His wife had baked bread. And I said, what are you doing here? He said, clearly you're mad at me about something, and I don't know what it is. I said, well, I'll tell you what it is. I said, I just feel like because we went to school together, since you were taking over an area that I was responsible for, and they put you in my old building, I just would have liked to have heard it from you. I said, like, if let's say we were both salesmen, and this was my territory, and now you took it over. Just a courtesy call from you to say, I want you, before you ride by, and see on your sign that you put up there, I'm going to put my name on it. Like, and he said, you know what? Touche. I understand your point, and I probably would have been upset if it's the other way around. He said, but can I just tell you, none of us in the Assemblies of God ever think that you even think about us. He said, we kicked you out, and you go and build this church that's bigger than any church of anybody that we know. So he said, I got to tell you, I'm flattered that I'm on your radar screen enough for you to be upset with me. He said, we just thought we kicked you out of the assemblies. And he's like, well, didn't seem to do any problem to him. He just went to the next level. And I thought, wow, I'm so surprised that that's what you think. I don't think she'll mind this, but I had a conversation with Chandra after the dedication of the Tyler Perry Studios, and she was telling me about some of the people that were there. She said, I'm standing there like, standing there talking to Sam Jackson and all these people. And I said, well, Chandra, you're one of them. I mean, I understand what you're saying, but I'm sure there were people there that were excited to see you because you're not thinking of yourself maybe in that category, but you are a celebrity. I mean, I could say star of stage and screen. That's not a stretch. You have done that. Which not that she doesn't know that. It's just sometimes you're in a context where you don't think, well, maybe I'm not like them. Yeah, you are. Everybody's just everybody. The people who put on the pretense and act like they're better than you, it's because they feel insecure. The people who really know who they are make you feel good about yourself. Like the celebrities that I have met over the years, the bigger they are, the nicer they are. Like the ones who really already know they're a legend, they'll talk to you. They're, whatever. It's those that are still not sure who they are. Or they think that you pose a threat to them. Bishop, how did you get all this out of the word they? Because that's how I roll. So I love this kid because in the next verse it says, the little boy walks in and addresses the baby. Little baby, parumpa-pum-pum, I am a poor boy too. Parumpa-pum. Now that's very interesting because he automatically identifies with Jesus. He walks to that context and he's like, I got more in common with this kid than you guys do. Because, look at this. They're in a barn. The word manger just means an eating trough. Like in Italian, mangia, that means to eat. So, it doesn't, I don't care how poor you were. And some of y'all might not have just been poor, you might have been po. Because po is worse than poor. That's a whole other level. I doubt there's any of you in here, or any of you listening on YouTube or on the podcast, that were born in a barn and laid in a feeding trough. You at least were at your big mama's house or something. You at least had a roof over your head. This is pretty extreme. And this kid walks in and he says, I'm a poor boy too. And then this is where it gets, this is the emotional part for me. Because now this goes beyond class consciousness. This goes to who you are as a person, your gift, your calling. He says, I have no gift to bring, pa-rum-pa-pum-pum, that's fit to give our King, pa-rum-pa-pum-pum. And then he says this statement is a very dangerous statement. You have to gather up all of your vulnerability and everything to ask this question. He says, shall I play for you? Pa-rum-pa-pum-pum. What's in that line? What he's saying is, look, I see these people. I'm not like them. This is all I have. You know, Jesus told the story about the woman with what they call the widow's mites. Remember? And he said that woman gave more than the other people who made a big deal over their big giving. And the disciples said, why? He said, because she gave all that she had. I've told you this story before, but it'll make my point. Years ago, for about 20 years, I used to go up to Cleveland, Tennessee and teach at the New Life Bible College. And I went fairly regularly. And one night I was up there and I'd spoken, I taught in the school and then I spoke at the chapel on that Friday night, and I was driving back to Atlanta that night. And that's back when we used to sell tapes and CDs, so I was back at the table and I'm selling stuff. And there's a little guy standing there, just looked, I could tell he was had some issues. He didn't look really clean, he didn't smell really good. The kind of person that it would be easy for them to put him on the back row or whatever. And he just kind of stood there at the table for a long time. And I said, can I help you? Because a lot of times when people would come to me and they couldn't afford something, there's no way to tell you how much product I've given away over the years. I mean, if there's such a thing as sowing a seed, when my wave comes in, if there is such a thing as a 100-fold return, I'm flying us all to Las Vegas. Because I've given a lot of stuff away. Yeah, if somebody just really wanted it and they couldn't afford it. Now, sometimes people were playing me, like, I wish I could afford it. I'm like, well, I just got to believe God, Because you know how it is. People are like, I'd like to get that CD, but I can't afford it. Well, maybe next year. Keep hope alive. Because you're still paying for your stuff. You're like, baby, I'm trying to pay for this stuff. And I remember he said, are you driving back to Atlanta tonight? And I said, yes. And he said, do you ever stop for coffee when you're driving? And I said, yeah. I mean, yeah. So he pulls out this nasty-looking, crumpled-up dollar bill. And I could tell he was embarrassed to even say it, but he said, I want to do something for you. He said, I loved your message tonight. He said, can I buy you a cup of coffee? And, of course, whew. And you could tell with the line of people who are, there's people popping down $100 bills, buying tapes, whatever. And I said, yeah, I will. And I made it a point. I mean, I thanked him for it, and I said, I speak 100-fold return over you. And on the way, that night, I stopped at a Waffle House and intentionally used that dollar bill because I told him I would do it. And there was just something about that moment, because we've all been in places. I mean, I've never really gone hungry or so, but there have been times in my life where I know what it was like to say, man, I'd like to buy something, but I just don't have it. I mean, I think we can all relate to that. Things that you want to do, and it's like you try to say it as positively as you can, but it's like I can't do anything. I think we all can relate to what that feels like. And I wanted to make it a point to say to that guy, thank you very much. Yes, I will. I didn't even, for me to say, no, buddy, you need this dollar more than I do, that would be insulting. I needed to let him, I said, yes, I will. Give me that dollar. Coffee's on you tonight. And I made it a point to make sure he knew that I'm not better than you. I remember when the first time I ever did a prison ministry, was my dad pastored a church in Macon, Georgia, and there was this sort of anti-MAME kind of bigger-than-life character, Agnes Claire Arnold. I always remember her, but she was involved with the prison system in Macon, and so she would get my dad into preach places. And on a couple of occasions, he took me with him, and I remember standing. They stood me on a piano bench, and I sang "Jesus Love Me." I was in first grade, and those prisoners would be crying and stuff because probably a lot of them had kids my age or whatever, and they weren't allowed to touch me. I couldn't, you're not allowed to make physical contact. But I remember even then knowing I'm not better than these guys, and I always kept that in my head. Like when I do prison ministry over the years, I think if I'd had the same life circumstances that they've had, minus the advantages that I've had, I probably easily could have ended up the exact same place. So the idea of you're too good to do something or help somebody out, to me, there's nothing worse than that. There's a reason why the scripture says the Lord hates a proud look. And from this song, I don't get that the Magi were rubbing it in the kid's face. I think they're just oblivious. They're just saying, we got money. You obviously got money. We're gonna give our finest gifts to the king. Come on, give yours. And the kid's like, I don't have any gold. No frankincense. I can't even get any myrrh. You can't get myrrh. It's pretty bad. But he goes to this king that's obviously a big deal, or all these other people wouldn't be in here coming from Persia to bring these gifts. So this must be something. And the kid says, "Shall I play for you?" Now that's the kind of question, when you think all I got's this little talent, this little thing that I can do. That's all he had, was his ability to play a little drum solo. And it would be so easy in that context to say, no thank you. We're only doing gold, frankincense, and myrrh this year. We don't have time for your sad little homeless boy drum solo. So you just take that noise outside and come back when you got something to give. But I love this line, and I can say it now without being emotional, but there was a time when I would talk about this, I couldn't get through it because I would think, sometimes all you can do is your best, and sometimes your best isn't enough. Shall I play for you, pa-rum-pa-pum-pum, on my drum? And then this is a beautiful sentiment. Mary nodded. In other words, Mary's in charge. This is her scene. So for her to say, yes, this is what I visualize, is that saying, everybody, please, could we all be quiet? This little boy, is going to play a drum solo for the king. I need you all to be quiet. I need you all to recognize. You don't tell kings to shut up. You're supposed to be bowing and genuflecting. We're so honored that you would grace us with your presence. Mary's like, shh. It's time for a drum solo. The ox and lamb kept time, pa-rum-pa-pum-pum. And then this little line here, I played my drum for him. In other words, that's all I got. All I got is this drum. I don't have anything to give you. This is me. This is my little talent. This is my little ability. I played my drum for him, and I love this line because you got to see your opportunity and you got to take it. And this is Mary shushing the crowd saying, this little kid's about to play. I need y'all to be quiet. Let's listen. And he steps up. By God, I played my drum for him. And I had that little moment of audition. I played my best for him. In other words, this is, you got to fight for your chance to be heard, to be seen. And when your chance comes, when when you've made the trip here and you're with the Magi and they got all the gifts, and now Mary says, all right, now you're on, kid. It's not time to go. You don't have time to make excuses for it. You don't have time to say, now I don't have gold, frankincense, and myrrh tonight, but y'all just pray for me while I try to play. You don't have time for that. Just shut up and play. If that's what you do, then you stand in that microphone or you do that thing. If that's what you've got, it's not inferior to what anybody else has. You play your best for him. And then here's the payoff. Then he smiled at me. Me and my drum. Me and my little, who knows? A drum is probably something a kid like him makes out of natural elements. Wood that he carved, an animal skin that he tanned or whatever you do to him, cured. It's that drum is not a musical instrument. It's him. It's his essence. This came out of me. This is all I can do. Look, whatever it is that God gave you, don't qualify it. Don't make excuses for it. I hate when somebody invites you to something and they spend the whole time apologizing that it's not enough. It's enough. If you're here, it's enough. It's fine. Like you're missing the whole point. Most of the stuff that people have apologized to me for over the years was so pointless. The apologies I actually needed from people, they were so self-absorbed they never even knew it. I'm like, baby, you don't have to apologize to me for your house or whatever. These are the people who need to apologize. Not you. You're fine. So there's so much to this. It's about self-esteem. It's about believing in yourself. It's about whatever your theology is. This is in the Christian context. So he's saying, for this king, I'm honoring this king. Then he smiled at me. That's all I needed. I don't need a paycheck. I don't need affirmation. I wanted to connect with this baby in this manger, and I did what I do. That's the best I can do. And when you know, and if you didn't hear anything else, hear this. Once you know that God has smiled on you, nothing else matters. You don't need the approval. He doesn't need the Magi to say, well, that was a really good drum solo. You don't need that. You already got it. The baby smiled at me. The baby smiled at me. I was, holding my new granddaughter the other day. And, when babies when they're that young, it takes them a while for their eyes to focus. So sometimes I'll be talking to her, and she's like looking around the room, and, she's distracted with things. There's a fan up there, and she's looking at that, and I'm like, Clementine, hey. And I have my crazy stuff that I say to her. Your baby talk for babies is like your prayer language. Like you say stuff, and you're like, why do I even say that? Like, I know this sounds crazy. You're going to have me locked up when you hear me say that. But in the book of Daniel, where it says they I shouldn't tell you all this. The handwriting on the wall, it's written in Babylonian, and it says, it's mene, tekel, upharsin is what it says. But it looks like mene, tekel, upharsin. And so when I look at it, I'm like, mene, tekel, upharsin. Why am I saying this? The handwriting on the wall. It's just a language I have with her. But the other day, I was holding her, and she's looking around, and their heads are like this or whatever. And all of a sudden, she focused on me, and she goes, and it's the first time that she's really seen me and smiled. Now, she's made eye contact with me as soon as the first time I saw her. But it's the first time that it's registered with happiness. And I was like,
Girl,
that
that's
was
a sweetie girl.
That was her with Christina. But there was one.
Girl, that's a sweetie girl. She's a sweet girl.
Yeah, that was with Christina. But there was one that I was holding her. It's 4 shots, and I was holding her. And no, it's not that one. It's that was the one. Yes, I was holding her, and she had just woken up from a nap, and she's looking around, and I was like, Clementine, meanie, tickle you farting. And obviously she just looks at me and she goes, so I'm like snapping pictures. And it's like, in that moment, I didn't care if anybody else in the world liked me or not. Do you know what I mean? It didn't matter. I could get the meanest hate mail from me. I'd be like, whatever. Clementine just smiled at me. I'm good. And that's the way you should feel about whatever it is that you have. Don't ever feel better than anybody else, but don't ever feel less than. Don't ever feel inferior to anybody else. Don't ever apologize, for your gift that it's not enough or whatever. It's awesome. I hate when I hear somebody who I think has an amazing gift, then they put it down. They say, "Oh, well, it's I didn't think I did that." Don't. You're ruining the vibe. I loved what you did. Don't take away from it by. I just love that this song ends with that. Then he smiled at me. Pa-rum-pa-pum-pum, me and my drum. I'm good. From here on out, there's the green light. I feel good about me. I feel good about what I do. I feel good about my relationship with God. That's the little drummer boy. Did you get anything out of that? Let's all stand. Now you'll never hear that the same way. And I've talked about it before, but I haven't taken it this deep before, and I really think there's a lot to it. Please play this, and then I'll speak a blessing over you before you go.
Contributing to Metron is quick and easy.
Easy peasy.
You can give anytime using any smartphone. Text the amount you would like to donate to 404-620-5044. You will then receive a notification that you successfully completed your donation. You may also visit bishopthenow.com and click the support tab to give there as well. When you contribute to Metron, you're also donating to the charity or organization of the month. Thank you for your investment.
If you're making a check, make it to JESM, and Danny will receive that. If you have cash, go pay it forward. And I want you to have a beautiful day. Be sure to get signed up for the Christmas party. If you haven't done it yet, it's going to be a really beautiful event. I speak a blessing over you, a great day. Get some rest. Be at peace. Super energized for your week tomorrow. Whatever you've got coming up, you will rise to the occasion. You will be fine. God is smiling at you and your drum. Peace.